Hello and welcome to the Comic Conspiracy, episode number 86 for the week of December 3rd. December, Jesus Christ. Is it already December?
Yes, sir.
I hate it. Where's this year going? Anyway, my name's Ryan Higgins. We're here for another episode. A little bit of a different shake-up with our cast this week, so let's get some introductions and then we'll see what's up. First,
Omar,
what's happening?
chilling.
Next,
And Charlie.
what's happening?
Not too much.
And on the far end,
Hey, I'm the new guy, Alex.
hello, Alex. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
You want to get maybe a little closer to the mic. Perfect. That
Hey.
sounds good. Perfect. Alex, you are one of our regular HeroClick guys here, or semi-regular HeroClick guy here.
Regular enough.
Regular enough with Omar here on Friday. And you are also a comic book fan.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Excellent. All right. So we were short a few people today. Toby, last minute, decided to go to some game involving balls and large black men.
In Oakland, yeah.
In Oakland. So I don't know what he's up to. Brock had some family emergency thing last minute, so it's like, find people to be on the podcast. So cool. So, Alex, thank you for coming by and being on.
Yeah, no worries.
You are... would you say you're a gamer more, or are you a comic fan more?
Right now, a bit more of a gamer.
Okay.
I'm trying to get caught up on a lot of the comics that I like to read. I picked up the first 7 or 8 issues of all of the new 52 stuff for DC to get kind of caught up on that.
Okay.
I spent a little while getting caught up on X-Men, and I think I got up to just past Messiah Complex to where before I couldn't really find everything else I was looking for. And I mean, it's a lot of fun. I think my biggest issue is I've been out of comic books for so long, I might as well just jump headfirst in on some new series, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what was, like I said earlier before we recorded, we usually like to ask people their secret origin, quote unquote, of stuff that they, what they were doing when they first got into comics, how old they were, what they first read. So what's your secret origin? Give us your life history as it evolves around comic books and gaming, for that matter.
Sure. Well, I mean, as far as gaming is concerned, I grew up around a D&D table. My folks, when we lived in Southern California, my folks played Dungeons and Dragons.
So you're second generation nerd.
Oh, yeah.
There's not very few. Well, there's more of those now. Well, how do you mind? How old are you? Do you mind asking?
I'm 29.
Okay, so you're the same age as we are. So that's rare. So they must have been like OG D&D, original.
I've actually still got their
first
character
edition.
sheets.
That's awesome.
What?
Yeah.
That's sick.
I've got their character sheets, and I actually, in my dice bag, I've got all of their dice. So it's kind of now it's like stuff to pass down. So.
Nice.
That's cool. I know Ryan Scott, who runs Geekbox, is part of his wife. Her parents were original D&Ders from the 70s, mid-late 70s and stuff, and so they've been playing, and she grew up around that type of stuff too. So it's right at that age, if your parents played, you're in that 30s, late 20s, early 30s, and then there's not that many of those guys out there. So that's cool. That's really cool.
Well, I mean, that also gets into the whole miniature painting thing, because my mom used to paint miniatures for both Dungeons and Dragons. They also played BattleTech back in the day, if any of you guys remember that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But she also painted those, and I kind of picked that up from her and ran with it. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, I'd say I didn't really get completely into comic books myself. I read what my dad had, because my dad was also a big Avengers and Thor fan when he was younger, and he kind of passed that on to me. But my first comic book was actually an issue of Uncanny X-Men when I was I want to say 6 or 7 years old. Maybe a little older now that I think about it. Maybe 8 or 9. But anyways, bought that from the corner liquor store in Pismo Beach. And I've actually still got it, covers falling off, all that jazz. But I still bust it out every now and then to kind of read it, because it's this old, corny story. And it's cool seeing the characters in their just wonky 90s get-ups.
Yeah, right.
Like the old Psylocke outfit where it was gray and purple with the hood. And
yeah. Dazzler with her her bandana.
Dude, Dazzler is the 80s. Come on, man.
Yeah.
I think before you were saying he was the first Jim Lee one, so that's X-Men 248.
Was it 248?
Where it's Colossus is pushing up the rubble
and
or whatever,
and
and
Storm.
Yeah. Yep. 248. Yep, that's it. So that's a good issue. So Jim Lee, obviously very, to this day, extremely influential in the comic books.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Villain in that one I remember was Nanny and the Orphan Maker.
Oh, terrible characters. X-Men really have some of the worst villains of all time. I've gone on at length on how much I hate Sugar Man from Age of Apocalypse, one of the dumbest characters that have ever existed.
What are his powers?
He's sugar. I have no idea. It's stupid. I hate that guy. I really hate that
But they
guy.
make up with it for characters like Arcade.
Sure. Hey, Arcade's okay.
Yeah, Arcade is like Arcade is Saw. Like you can't even say what else is he? Yeah. He's Saw. He's Saw from the 80s.
Yeah.
So what do you, and as you said, you were reading some of the New 52 stuff. Are you reading anything else right now, or are you kind of more into the clicks and gaming stuff?
So I'm getting caught up on X-Force, which is a really good book.
Remenda.
Absolutely.
Huh?
I said Remenda.
Oh, dude, Remenda is so good.
Now, did you read the previous one, like the Necrotia arc with who was that? No, it was Amnet and Lanning.
Silvestri?
No, the one right prior to Uncanny X-Men or X-Force. Who the heck did that? I'm totally drawing a blank right now.
I don't think I actually read that.
Oh, so you started with the Uncanny X-Force stuff? Okay.
Yeah. But I'm also reading Uncanny Avengers, which is a lot of fun.
So you read last week's issue?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course I did.
Nice.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay, fine.
I want to talk about it now. Well, we're gonna do some Marvel Now kind of talk on some of the early issues. Now that Brock's not here, we can talk about Marvel for once. Jesus.
Yeah. Oh, dude, Marvel's my thing, man. I love Marvel.
You're actually surrounded by a table of DC guys, so it's all right, though.
Well, that's fair. Well, I mean, like, we're talking, like, my dad was an Avengers fan. My first comic book was X-Men. Mm-hmm. When I was in Little League, we would go to the card shops and buy... You guys remember that original Marvel, collectible card set?
Oh, yeah.
That had, the little holofoils?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Dude, I had literally the entire set of that. We spent months collecting that, me and my dad, and it was a blast.
I've mentioned this before, but growing up it was all Marvel for me, and the first comic was Marvel, and everything was Marvel, to the point that I didn't see the Batman movie when it came out in theaters because I was like, "Fuck that! That's not a Marvel movie. Stupid DC." Uh-huh. Times have changed, and I'm a much more bigger DC fan these days. But
the card that you're referring to. Arjang actually had it in a binder, and we were talking about it, and we were all playing. This was maybe 2 months ago, and he's all, "Omar, check this out." I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" He had the whole set.
Everyone had that. Everyone
the whole
had
set. No, but he still had it, and he
cool.
had it in this cool little binder, this funky cover. That was almost looked like one of those Trapper Keepers or something like that. Yeah. It was just like that style.
Everyone had. That's how I got in. The ways I got into comics were that. But also some of the animated series that were on. They used to rerun the old Hanna-Barbera Fantastic Four cartoon and a few others. But those cards were some of my earliest introduction to superheroes before I actually bought the comic book. So
I was more into. I remember completely turning over the card and be like, "Who's this?" and reading first appearance, blah blah. These are those were very informative cards.
Oh yeah, with the power scales and stuff on the back.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
Yeah, I remember. Going back to the whole cartoons, I remember watching the 90s X-Men cartoon with my dad. We watched X-Men, Spider-Man, remember Fantastic Four and Iron Man, the Power Hour. Yeah. And then the old Incredible Hulk cartoon. Uh-huh. Who was the guy who did the leader in that? He was also the bad guy in...
There's an actor that played it?
Yeah.
I do not know.
Dang.
Was it someone special?
Toby would know this.
Yeah, it was
probably.
Yeah.
I'm completely blanking on the movie too, it was a ghost movie with Michael J. Fox. Oh my god.
Okay, now I'm just gonna have to look it up. Yeah, because this is
I'm completely blanking
because we're all kind of like
this is terrible. This is terrible radio. But let me look up who did the voice on the who did the
the animated Hulk show. Who did? Well, I know who did the voice of the Hulk, and that was Lou Ferrigno.
Yeah, he
got him back.
It's amazing the amount of times he's voiced the Hulk since that show.
Did he?
Why not?
He did it in Avengers too, right?
I don't think he did the voice in Avengers, but
he did the
voice in The Incredible Hulk.
I'm sad to see Earth's Mightiest Heroes go. That show was so good.
Yeah.
Matt Frewer?
Matt Frewer, that's right. And no, he wasn't the villain in that movie that I'm thinking of.
Yeah. No, yeah, he was.
I'm dumb as hell.
He was Moloch in Watchmen. Oh, dude, he's Max Headroom, of course.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Like, I was like, why does that name sound so familiar?
That's pretty big. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Who's Max Headroom? No,
Yeah, right.
kidding.
Max Headroom, so good. Yes. He was in the Pink Panther revival series. He was in Gargoyles.
Who was he in Gargoyles?
He was a jackal.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Dude, we were just talking about Gargoyles at work the other day, and I'm like, they could totally do a live action movie now and just get like all of the Next Generation guys who aren't doing anything to come back and just do the voices for the movie.
They're all doing cons right now.
Yeah.
It's like, you guys want to come back and do a movie?
There's so many cons. All right. Well, as is typical on our podcast, we go through and we like to read a bunch of questions we get on email or Twitter or something like that. So let's read a few of those and Alex, feel free to jump in anytime if you got just jump in anytime and
I intend.
Try not to talk over everyone. Everyone keep it calm. There's only 4 of us here this week, so
I'm going to just interrupt Omar literally every time. He starts.
Sweet. All right. Let's Stefano, and he asks. We get a lot of questions from him. Good questions too. So let's start with one of his. He asks, "What book would you want brought back that is not currently running?" I've had a few questions like this, and I actually did get a few specifically based on what characters have not come back in the New 52 that you want. So let's just try to avoid like DC. Well, no, because I feel like we've just answered this question specifically on the New 52 stuff. Yeah, it feels like it was. Oh, well, if you got one, that's fine. But it feels like we answered that recently. But if you got some other books you want to see bring back, go ahead. We'll do whatever. What do you want?
Fine. I'm going to say DC because I feel like I've been just pipping Marvel books like crazy. So, and I feel like I say this again and again, but Brian Q. Miller, you need to hear it. Stephanie Brown, we need her back in some shape or form. Ooh. And according to the rumor mill, supposedly we might not even see her come back. Like,
I doubt it.
That sucks.
Do you belong? Are you sending DC waffles?
Brian Q. Miller, Perez. That combo is just incredible. Lee Garbett was on that for a while too.
It's a good book, but
awesome.
They're never going to do it when
they have Batgirl.
Batgirl.
And she was she just like I didn't care for her when she was spoiler, but
when Barbara's around, they're not going to bring her
terrible
back.
Robin.
Oh wow.
Oh, she wasn't. I mean, she was supposed to be a terrible Robin. Like the story was to kill her, and then they went, "Oops, fans like her, so let's bring her back."
Yeah. Wow. There's nothing wrong with being flawed. We all are.
Charlie, any book that you want to see brought back? We get another relaunch on? Anything coming to mind?
To me, the only thing that's coming to mind is Cable, and he's coming back in Cable and the X-Force. So
yeah.
There you go.
I'd want to say God, Marvel's bringing back like some crappy Defenders book. I was actually going through a bunch of old Defenders recently, and it's like, man, how many times have they failed to bring back the Defenders?
It was never as good as it was in the 80s.
And there's this new Fearless Defenders, and I'm like, well, this is going to be canceled in 12 issues. Like, why even bother? Like, I like the original Defenders. I think it's a great team because it's such a wacky group of people. Mm-hmm. But that's a book that I would love to see done right and actually with a creative team that's solid that'll succeed because it's a pretty funny book. I was going through a lot of Valiant stuff earlier, and one of the ones I was hoping to bring back was Shadow Man, so I'm glad to see that back. But there was another Vertigo book. What was I looking through? Oh, I was looking through the Unity crossover, and I wonder I'm really wondering if Valiant's going to bring back that. Maybe not quite that same story, but something similar to it, like some sort of big event book.
Okay.
But, of course, the ones you want to see back are Solar and Magnus. Mm-hmm. I'd love to see them get a hold of those rights again. It's probably too expensive, because Dark Horse couldn't afford them, so I don't think Valiant can.
Wasn't there a Magnus comic out just like maybe 2 years ago?
Yeah, from Dark Horse.
Yeah, recently.
Yeah.
But the license, the books didn't sell, and they said the license was really expensive.
Wow.
So I doubt we're going to see
Bummer.
Valiant pick up those characters, which is unfortunate because Turok, Magnus, and Solar, Men of the Atom, are such integral parts of the Valiant universe. I'm actually thinking that might be one of my next binding projects. Nice. Is some of the Valiant stuff. So
this crazy guy over here has a group of people that come together and they rip up the comics and they put it in this kind of format.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It's a comic binding.
I think it's
put them in
just nuts. It's crazy talk.
It's fun stuff. It's cool. Well, when we get those new Bryce, who's been on many podcasts before, he called me yesterday and he's like, "They need to hurry up and be faster. I need to bring up more books. I need my other books back." He's got like 10 volumes of X-Men sitting there waiting for him. So yeah, he's going crazy. Alex, since you are newer-ish again to reading comics, is there anything that's that you would like to see that isn't on the shelf right now?
I'm a huge fan of Iron Fist, and I would love to see Immortal Iron Fist get brought back. I know it's fairly recent, within the last few years, but
Fantastic book.
Yeah,
was such a
incredible.
good book. David Aja,
Yeah.
great artwork. Just it was so much fun to read. I love like that old kind of 70s chopsocky feel,
For sure.
Like, and it was just a blast, and I was sad to see it end.
Totally.
And
I've even got an omnibus treatment.
Have you been reading Hawkeye?
No, I haven't. I really should though.
Yeah, one of our other listeners, Jaden, asks, you guys should talk about Matt Fraction's Hawkeye. I think it's awesome.
I love Matt Fraction.
Yeah, so it's Matt Fraction and David Aja doing Hawkeye.
Oh yeah, dude.
So I had issues with the first issue. I didn't.
Yes,
like
I remember discussing this with you at length.
Yes. I have 2 and 4. I'm waiting for the new printing of 3 to come back so I can reread them. I'm going to give the book another shot. I really didn't like that first issue, but Fraction to me is real hit or miss. I love David Aja, but the first issue I was having a really hard time with. But I am going to go back and reread it because it could just be one of those things where I just wasn't in the right mood when I read it and it just didn't work for me. But
It's good.
yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, everyone. I keep seeing pages and panels and things look pretty cool. So I'm like, all right, I gotta get this.
From an
look a
art
shot again.
standpoint, like David Aja is up there with Chris Boccolo and Joe Maduria, like as some of my favorite comic art to just look at. Like it's just.
But I think he surpasses both of them by far from the standpoint of just the graphic medium and understanding panel storytelling, even without words. I think when he reads the script, similar to J.H. Williams, he can just go all over the page and just makes your eyes wander all over the place. You know what I mean? Like, but no, I agree. Bacalo and Madeira, they're cool at creating having their own style. And,
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm looking at them from like different standpoints, obviously, but it's just I have my favorite artists that I like to go and pick up stuff from, and he's definitely one of them. And knowing that he does Hawkeye, I usually don't pick up single issues anymore. I kind of pick up collected volumes when I can. So Hawkeye is definitely on my list.
Nice.
Cool. Let's see. Maybe do 1 or 2 more questions here.
Doesn't hurt that I like the character.
Totally.
I love Hawkeye. I wish they would. My issue with the book was more that the Hawkeye and Avengers and the Hawkeye and Hawkeye are 2 very different characters, and a lot of times it's kind of jarring to me. And I don't know. Not that they have to be exactly the same, but it's like I just don't feel that these guys are in the same universe.
Oh yeah,
but whatever.
You know who's got a great
What
solo?
Avengers are you reading with him in it? Since Bendis just finished, and you weren't reading the Bendis Avengers.
Oh yeah, I've read it. I've read every issue of everything Bendis has ever written. Well, I've read every issue of every Marvel comic Bendis has ever written. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I've read every issue of Avengers and New Avengers. It doesn't feel
Just
like
so
the
you
same.
can complain about it?
It's just because it's some of the big books by the big company. Like I've read every Superman. Well, not every, but and I haven't read every Avengers comic, but I've read the very large majority of them. Some crappy miniseries I'll leave out or something, but
And for all those HeroClix listeners out there, we got a treat, being that Alex is one of the premier players in the Bay Area.
Come on.
Speaking of Hawkeye, who do you prefer now? Do you go to the 65 or the 98, the Chaos War or the Avengers movie?
so about,
They're
half
both
our,
very different.
about half our audience just turned off the.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's a tough choice. It depends because the 98-point Hawkeye, I rarely play at 98 points. I give him Thunderbolt, so he's technically 107 for me.
Yeah, it's kind of expensive.
But to give him two team abilities that when I build the team is just whatever I choose.
Yeah.
Is really good. But the thing is when I play the 65-point Hawkeye, I pair him with Mockingbird.
Nice.
So I go.
Not enough people do that.
I go 65-point Hawkeye, 50-point Mockingbird.
Get that +1 attack.
Omar's just trolling all our listeners.
Yeah.
Omar's trolling
See, this
hardcore.
is what happens when you get me talking about HeroClix. I'll just go on and on and on and on. But going back to comic books, you know who actually has a really good solo book right now along the lines of Hawkeye is Gambit. The new Gambit series is so good.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's pretty good. I like it more than I thought I was going to, considering if Gambit exploded into a million pieces, I probably wouldn't mind. So I'm not an X-Men fan at all.
Interesting that we have Toby, one of the biggest Gambit fans I know, not here, and yet the book is being pimped out by Alex.
Yeah. No, it's a decent book.
it is.
I have no problem with the book. It's good. It's actually pretty good.
I'm both an X-Men fan and I also like heist movies and whatnot. So it being that like strange combination of the two doesn't hurt.
It feels. I know Toby's a big fan of well, you said heist movies and like a lot of kind of crime drama TV shows. And Hawkeye definitely Gambit has a sort of job of the week sort of show. Like he likes white collar and a lot of a couple of shows in USA, and a very similar sort of setup. Like, who's Gambit going to get involved at this week? Or this month. It's pretty cool setup so far.
It's had more of an overarching arc so far.
There's been like 2 of them so far, right?
Well, but the first one led directly into the second one.
Yeah, but
I think they're up to like 3 or 4 now, aren't they?
Well, they're on their
we're
third.
talking about story arcs there, because
they're
the first arc went from the initial heist all the way through getting that thing out of his chest, and then the new arc is picking up from who he stole from and all that. So.
Yeah.
Well, here's one for you, Charlie. This is from Josh on Twitter. He asks, I just picked up the Starman omnibus from a sale at my local comic shop. I was wondering if omnibuses are worth the size and such. So he just wants to know, are omnibuses absolutes, big oversized hardcovers? Charlie, can you tell me without lying to our audience if they're worth it?
It really depends.
Charlie's a very large fan, no pun intended, a very large fan of very large collections.
He's a big man that likes big things.
to me, the thing is certain companies definitely have a more standardized sort of naming process. Sort of like Marvel's omnibuses are bigger than DC's older omnibuses, even though their newer ones have started to be a little more oversized as well. Sort of like the 52 and Infinite Crisis, they recently adopted the larger size. Honestly, for stuff like the old Swamp Thing and Starman and that kind of stuff, it's really a personal preference thing. I don't think you're getting more going with the hardcover than the trade paperback. But I mean, if you're talking about the like absolute versions, especially if you're getting absolute of something by a really good art, like I absolutely love the All-Star Superman absolute. Like if I had to choose instantly between the like absolute and the trade, I've read that absolute a number of times, even though it's bigger and like it's just beautiful. It's beautiful to see the artwork all blown up and getting the proper treatment that way. So it really depends on the book and the price. Because, I mean, obviously, if you're getting the omnibus hardcover at a nice discount, why not?
Yeah.
It'll hold up better on your shelf if you read it a lot. So
yeah, I've got a handful, and I mean, I love DC's absolutes, but the omnibuses, they are pretty cool. And I like that DC's not going too old school with their big ones. They're staying with pretty current material.
Yeah.
A lot of Jeff Johns, a lot of Grant Morrison stuff so far. So I'm happy because that's my favorite stuff.
Yep.
So,
I'm kind of shocked at how well they're doing with the Jeff Johns stuff. It's like getting to the point where it's more like, okay, what haven't they put out in an omnibus?
JSA.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm hoping
that's definitely up there.
Yep, that's the big one that's will come out.
And of course, I'm totally expecting a nice big Blackest Night omnibus at some point with all the crossovers and everything in routine order.
I'll buy that.
Yeah, right.
That was just a really well written storyline. I leave it to DC of all things to come up with a reason for heroes to never die.
Yeah.
Like I would have thought that Marvel would have been the first one to come up with that. Like I didn't expect there to ever be a reason, honestly, for heroes to come back from the dead all the time. But
Jeff Johns in Teen Titans, prior to that book, prior to Blackest Night and all that stuff, they actually had an arc where they went to hell, and it was a Kid Eternity, I believe, was in hell, like kind of hanging out, and he walks up to this door, and he's like, "Huh, who left this door open?" Of like literally just the door to the afterlife has been left open, so people were just able to come and go as they please. After Blackest Night, they kind of said, we're sort of shutting that door, but then they rebooted the universe, so I guess it doesn't matter anymore anyway. But
plus, I
mean,
mean,
it was pretty funny.
Jeff Johns loves tackling sort of those lingering questions for characters. I mean, he's done it time and time again, just where a lot of people are like, okay, we're just going to ignore 0 Hour. We're going to ignore, like, he's like, no, this stuff is cool. We should acknowledge this.
Yeah,
we should explore it. And like, that was one of my favorite things when he did Rebirth, was the fact that he kind of boiled down Green Lantern and all the stuff that people always think of when you think Green Lantern, and like addressed the yellow impurity. He addressed the gray hair. He just like immediately just went, this is what people think. This is the stuff I should bring up and address in my book. And I think has a very natural way of thinking that way.
Yeah. I want to see him and Chris Claremont fight.
Be a very short fight.
Yeah, you just like slapping each other.
All right, we got one last question here from Alistair on Twitter. He asks, this is actually a good question because you heard it too. He asks, I just got into comics. So, very good. Congratulations. That's curious. What got you into comic books? Was it our podcast? If it is, that's awesome. If not, that's cool that you listen to us, hopefully as well.
Do an iTunes, five-star review.
Yeah. I just got into comics. What are must-read in the DC universe?
Ooh,
so,
must-read.
So, we could name off 1,000 things.
Batman.
But I think it'd be great if we all just pick one book, so this guy's not buried under 1,000 books to suggest and read and go spend his money on.
Yeah.
Or you can go to digital.comicsconspiracy.biz and go buy digital comics from us. Or you can go to comicsconspiracy.biz and place a mail order through us. Or he can come to the store, 115-A East.
So are you going to repeat this at the end of the show, or are you just going to pass it?
Sunnyvale, California, 94087.
I would have to say,
and buy direct from us.
DC, it's not within New 52. It's Secret 6. Gail Simone.
Someone is just in the comics. You're going to give them Secret 6?
Yes. Levisi.
Okay.
It's just like it's just a gray book. You just read it and you celebrate the villain, and it's fucking incredible.
Okay.
You got some Batman in there, sprinkling some Superman. It's just like you go all over the DC universe, and Amanda Waller's still fat.
Don't hate.
I'm not hating.
Big girls need love too.
Yeah, no, hey, I'm saying I'd hit that.
Alex, you get to give someone a book who's never read a comic book before. What DC book do you give them? I mean, to me, there's like 4 or 5 really obvious answers. Which
so DC?
Yeah, this is what it wants. So DC.
New 52 Action Comics.
Yeah, okay,
it's really really good.
Good choice.
Sticking with current stuff.
Oh yeah,
Charlie.
My default answer is always Kingdom Come.
Right.
Oh, of course.
It's always got to be Kingdom Come for me.
That's one of the 4.
I think my only complaint about Kingdom Come to a new reader is there's so much that's missed by not having any sort of like prior DC knowledge.
Okay, so read Justice first, then read Kingdom Come.
There you go. Well, I mean, the clear, obvious ones that are my suggestions whenever people come into the store that I always give them are Dark Knight Returns and Long Halloween for Batman. Those are 2 very great, extremely standalone stories. Third is Superman, third is All-Star Superman, and 4th is Kingdom Come. So those 4 books, to me, I think just about anyone can pick up, and everyone has some knowledge of who Superman and Batman are.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think I think it would be hard to, especially in the United States these days, to be unaware of who these characters are in any fashion.
Actually, to chime in on the whole Batman thing, Killing Joke is probably one of the best stories I've read too.
With Killing Joke though, it's only it's real short.
Yeah,
that's why I'm trying to. Those 4 they have that nice collection out. They have a bunch of backup stuff in it too. But those 4 to me form a nice, a longer narrative, cohesive story. But Killing Joke is if there's a number 5, it's easily right up there. So that is always another great one. But the one I always like to suggest, and I've come back to this a number of times recently, and now that it's more back in print, which is great, is Grant Morrison's Justice League of America series from the mid-'90s. And my reason for suggesting that, and I've said it multiple times on here probably before, it's sort of unforgiving with continuity and what's going on around it. Things change all the time, and there's no real explanation given for anything. But to me, that's what's so essential with kind of the monthly superhero books and your normal continuity stuff, is that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because things change constantly. If you go away for 5 weeks and you come back, most of the characters are going to be totally different looking and real strange, and things are not going to make any sense. He kind of celebrated, sure, Superman's electric and blue in this issue, and now he's normal. Now he has a mullet, and now these weird things are happening for no reason, and you don't really need to know. And I find people get really stuck up on this. I need a good jumping on point. I need a good, starting point. I need to know everything, when no one in this room, their first comic book was Action Comics #1, right?
Yeah.
Or Amazing Fantasy 15. I mean, you start in the middle of story arcs and you just jump in and you jump in and you get it from wherever. And I think that JLA run is just so bombastic and over the top, and you get so many DC characters that you're like, it's maybe not in continuity with stuff now, so it would look kind of weird to something if you're going to now read Justice League of America or Justice League by Johns and Lee, but
that's another good one.
Yeah,
Justice League by John.
Since everyone threw out 3 to 5, I'm going to throw out my second one. DeMatteis and Geffen's JLI, because that
Sure.
Yeah.
is just fantastic.
Yeah.
That is bombastic.
You just like Booster Gold.
Hell yeah.
I love Booster Gold.
Hell yeah.
I love Blue Beetle. Just
Yeah.
Well, you got one more?
I got one more.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
it's if you're actually getting into Justice League,
Yeah.
it's one of the few really, really good stories for Justice League you can read that does not involve the big three:
Yeah.
Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. And it's Justice League Year One.
Yeah, that was good. Well,
Really, I
they're
like that a lot.
they're very briefly in it, but
Yeah, but they're not central to the story.
right. Because that was Mark Wade,
Wade, yeah.
and I don't remember who the artist on that was.
Augustin?
Oh,
Oh, no, I'm just reading the trade on the shelf
Oh,
there.
hey, there we go.
there it is. Yeah.
We even have it in the store.
Yeah. No, that was a really fun book. So it kind of, unfortunately, twice over now, continuity's been overwritten because I think they overwrote that continuity right after it came out, and then they redid it again. But no, it is a fun book because it gives you kind of a nice modern take on the classic Justice League series. So, I've actually had a number of questions here about Vertigo. And the reason behind that is something very, very big that happened earlier today that is worth talking about for a few minutes here. Karen Berger, who some of you may know, some of you may not know, has been the kind of senior editor at Vertigo, which is an imprint of DC Comics, since it was created 20 years ago. She's worked with DC Comics for 33 years under Paul Levitz, who was president for much of that. She is I shouldn't say single-handedly. She's mostly single-handedly responsible for Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, bringing Neil Gaiman over for Sandman, bringing Grant Morrison over for Animal Man, Peter Milligan on Shade the Changing Man. She basically is the hand behind Hellblazer, V for Vendetta, Fables, Preacher, Invisibles, Why the Last Man, Vertigo. Why the Last Man, 100 Bullets, American Vampire, DMZ. Let me pull up my microphone here and look. The Losers, Sweet Tooth. What else am I looking at here? Unwritten, Northlanders.
a lot of good fucking books.
So
right?
Demo, Death.
Just a handful.
Just a handful.
Yeah.
When did she start? When she was like 15? She doesn't look that old.
She was young. I think she was right out of college.
Oh, wow.
She was like an editor with an
incredible.
assistant editor underneath Paul Levitz.
Sweet.
So there has been a lot of talk, especially in the last year or two, that Vertigo was going through some structural kind of changing up since they were moving John Constantine and Swamp Thing and all those characters back to the DC universe, and sort of whether Vertigo was sort of being minimized and kind of people weren't I don't know.
So I just figured as long as Fables was still coming out, there would still be a Vertigo.
Yeah. Sure. Well, for some people, this is sort of like, another nail in the coffin. For me, I'm thinking, it's hard to look at this and pull anything really good out of it because she's been so involved with this since the beginning of the creation of the imprint. And Vertigo has probably published the best comic books that have been published in the last 20 years, almost exclusively. They've been responsible for some of my favorite books of all time, and personally responsible for keeping me reading comic books during a couple of lean years in the 90s, which I may not have continued reading, and I may not be here in that case. Yeah, so I don't think Vertigo is going anywhere, personally. They have Sandman coming up with J.H. Williams and Neil Gaiman. There's a couple new books that are
bananas.
Yeah, there's a couple new books that are being launched next year.
What you're saying of the day, bananas?
Yeah. Have I said it like 3 times yet? 4 times?
There's a couple new books being launched next year. At least one of them is pitched as an ongoing series. Karen Berger mentioned, or there was a mention here that she was training basically a handful of people to sort of take over for her. I think people are really blown out of proportion. I don't think Vertigo is going anywhere. If nothing else, if they kill the imprint, you leave it on all these trade paperbacks because those are what sells. That's where the money is. With DC now kind of being really hardcore into let's get our stuff turned into movies and TV shows and whatever. I think this is just her kind of taking a step back, kind of like Paul Levitz when he took a step back. And then DC just went, okay, here comes the movies and the video games and here comes everything, right? I think this is her was sort of the last kind of thing holding back a lot of these things because Vertigo, until recently, held no long-term creative control over the content. so people could get the rights back. They didn't have rights to the movies, to the video games, to anything based on Vertigo properties. That's why you've seen so little of Vertigo made into anything. I think we're now done with that. I think Vertigo is now completely self-controlled by DC. Creator rights are very limited there comparatively, but it's instant to Vertigo, or it's instant to Warner Brothers. So if you want to have your thing made into a movie and Vertigo picks it up, that's probably a pretty good way to do it. I don't know. This means a lot to me because Karen Berger is personally responsible for a very large majority of my interest in comic books. So this is kind of, if Dan Didio left, if, Joe Quesada left, I mean, that sucks, but that'd be whatever. Like, I wouldn't care. Like, this is actually kind of pretty important to me. So, I'm just rambling. I don't know what to say.
No, you're not rambling. I was just so surprised that Karen Berger meant more to you than Darkseid.
Well, so here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Everyone online, their response today was, oh my God, Karen Berger's leaving comics. It's the end of DC. I'm going to quit reading comics. The people I've talked to in real life have all said, who's that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Most people don't know the editors. Half the time, they don't even know the writers or the artists. I mean, so few people care about this sort of thing. So it's funny to see such vastly diverging opinions. Well, but again, I shouldn't be because this is what we always see, where the internet goes so hardcore in one extreme, and the actual audience is like, okay, well, oh darn, this producer in this movie got fired. Whatever, I'm still going to go see this movie because I don't know what a producer is. No one cares. So if you have liked any Vertigo comic ever published, Karen Berger is responsible for it in some fashion. So I'm curious what's going to happen now.
I think it was the collective flipping out of the internet over this is probably both a combination of her leaving and the cancellation of the Hellblazer comic.
Yeah. Well, that was definitely the other shoe. I mean, once you found out Hellblazer was going away, and then her leaving, it's like, all right, well, now Vertigo really is not what it was. Like, well, at least we still have Hellblazer. Karen Berger's still there, but now it is clearly a very different thing.
Yeah.
So, it could be good. Vertigo, outside of Fables, I think Vertigo's kind of languished the last few years. There's been a few good series, but, we haven't seen a Transmet or a Sandman or a Preacher. We haven't seen...
to see more Transmet.
We haven't seen a big series from Vertigo in a while. There have been some good ones. There's been some very good ones. But I don't think there's been one that has, just blown me away from issue 1.
Well, that's why I said, as long as... I can't see them moving Fables over into DC. Therefore, as long as Fables is still selling and there's still going to be a Vertigo, even if it's only publishing Fables.
Yeah. No, it's ridiculous to think that Vertigo is going to go away in any fashion. So I just don't. But I did have a few people ask me this question. And one guy, Joshua, just because he's the one that's at the top here, and Russell, I got in here, and I think one other person asked, what's your favorite or what was your first Vertigo book? Joshua actually brings up a good point. Is Image the new Vertigo? And no, because Image is all you're basically self-publishing. Image just puts the book out for you.
Yeah.
You're involved with the marketing, you're the editor, you do almost everything. You just go publish under Image and they print it for you. So no, it's not the same thing.
Plus Image popularized Liefeld, so Image is dead to me.
Oh, Marvel popularized Liefeld. That's all Marvel's fault.
Yeah. I still blame it on Image and Todd McFarlane.
I found when I was
blame lies squarely with them.
When I was going through some old books today, I found a Megaton Comics. So, Megaton Man was just where Savage Dragon first appeared and all that, before Image. And there was a Megaton. I don't remember the name of the comic, but there was an ad in it. This was 1987 for Youngblood by Rob Liefeld. And I'm like, he was 12 or something at that point? How old was this guy in 1987? Yeah. He was super young when he was 17 when he was on X-Force, or 18 or something like that. Or New Mutants. He was super young, and it was 90. So what was he, 14 or something?
He was like the Eddie Murphy of comic books.
It was crazy. But what was so great, Omar, you love it, dude. Everyone had flat tops.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It was amazing.
I had a flat top because of his stylistic.
I can imagine that. But I think my first Vertigo book was Sandman number 50. That was the first issue of Sandman I ever read, which was the Arabian Nights issue, which is fantastic. I picked up Sandman on and off, but definitely the first Vertigo series I read very, very consistently was Sandman Mystery Theater, which was the kind of the newer version of the original Sandman. So they sort of took this kind of crime noir look at the original 30s, Mystery Man, Sandman, which was a really great series. I think I don't remember who the artist was on that. But Matt Wagner wrote a bunch of that, who I really like. But yeah, that was probably my first one that I know. Sandman 50 was my first Vertigo book I ever read. So, Omar, you read any? You've read some Vertigo stuff.
I read some Vertigo, but nothing.
Do you remember
memorable.
when you first?
No, all I know is that I'm so happy to be reading Animal Man and to have John Constantine in the book and to be reading Batwoman and supposedly seeing Desolation Jones. Yeah. I know it's Wildstorm, but still. Everything within the DC universe and just like pumping up the characters and having more people out there.
Guy Davis was the artist on Sandman Mystery Theater. That's right.
Thank you.
I love that guy.
Thanks for passing that on.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. So I'm the opposite end of the spectrum. So
yeah, I mean, I've never actually seen you read much or talk about a bunch of Vertigo stuff. That's kind of not your thing, huh?
Not really.
Yeah.
Just too dark and brooding for me. I'm a happy guy.
Oh, this is totally my teenage goth years. Dude. So
there's plenty of stuff in Vertigo that you can read that you don't have to be like, woe is me /wrists to read. Like, there's a bunch of Fable stuff. Fable reads like an adventure series.
Yeah.
It's a blast. And then I guess kind of lead into my first Vertigo series, which is Transmet. The first volume of Transmetropolitan. Mm-hmm. If you like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, if you have any sort of respect for Hunter S. Thompson as a writer, like, that goes off and plays on like that personality, that persona of gonzo journalism, and it's a blast to read. I love that book, and I was so sad to see it end, but it kind of reached its inevitable conclusion. But yeah, first volume of Transmet.
Charlie.
So I honestly have no clue what the first individual thing I read in Vertigo
even
was.
Something that turned into Vertigo, like Animal Man or Swamp Thing.
My point is basically, yes, I know I read some random Swamp Thing here and there, and I'm sure some of it was under the Vertigo imprint, but I don't think I really became aware of Vertigo as this is the Vertigo imprint until my friend got me started on Preacher, and I think that was the first full series that I read that was distinctly Vertigo.
It's good stuff.
Garth Ennis.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, it'll be real interesting to see what happens with the Vertigo over the course of the next few years, especially the next 6 months. Again, I assume nothing big will change. Maybe we'll get some new movies or something like that'll come through. But I think we're pretty much.
Because Constantine was so good.
Yeah. Well, and I think people forget. I mean, Swamp Thing and Hellblazer and Animal Man, and these characters are DC Universe characters. The only reason Vertigo existed at the time was because Paul Levitz, who was the publisher at the time, did not want comic book characters swearing and nudity, and he was like, dude, Alan Moore's doing some freaky shit in Swamp Thing, and Rick Veitch wants to have Jesus show up in an issue of Swamp Thing. I don't know if we can do this. They had the mature reader tag, and they're like, well, let's make it a separate imprint. Superman will never, well, he did once or twice, but Superman will never appear on a Vertigo book. Mm-hmm. Vertigo characters are completely cut off from the DC universe, and to me, that sucks. I loved Vertigo. I loved the creator-owned side of Vertigo. I love Sandman. I love Swamp Thing. But I like those characters because they exist in the DC universe. Sandman, the first appearance of Destiny was in an issue of Superman. Mm-hmm. Right? The guy that becomes the new Sandman is the son of two members of Infinity Inc., but you would never know that if reading Sandman because they're not presented as such. But if you know who these characters are, they're actual DC characters. So, I've never had a problem with them bringing them back in. And even if they wanted to scrap Vertigo and make a new creator-owned line, I would not mind. But I think Vertigo's the best when Vertigo should be all creator-owned stuff, and they should have good royalties, and they should have strong rights to make movies and TV shows out of. So I'll be curious if this changes going forward.
I think the thing for me is, I guess, flat out, they need a place where they can put stuff that's not within the DC universe, because there are stories that just don't work with, as I was saying before, you can't have Fables in DC. You can't have Preacher in DC. You can't, like, there's all sorts of great stories out there that work being published by Warner Brothers technically and stuff. You need that additional imprint to sort of set these as this isn't the same world Superman's in.
Sure.
This is, I think that's important.
It's like Marvel has, was it Icon,
yeah.
right?
On the Max label.
Yeah.
Yeah, Icon especially is just their kind of, hey, Bendis, bring powers. Hey, Mark Miller, print all your stuff with us instead of going to Image.
Yeah.
You know, and there's no reason Vertigo can't basically be the same thing.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's what it's going to turn into, or if it's going to become completely DC owned, but you get some cut of the pie. You know?
I'm wondering if that's why, because that was one of the things that was sort of surprising me, is you started to see a lot of DC names on Image books recently.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if this had to do with that shift you were talking about of them not giving really a place to launch
Possibly.
those books the way anymore. So
Well, again, Image is you get complete creator control, but you're also responsible. You have no editor. You have no one pushing you to meet a deadline.
yeah, but if Morrison wanted no editor, he could get away with that at Vertigo.
Yeah.
I would assume.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem. No, it's not that you don't want an editor. You want an editor that's going to let you do what you want to do. The editor will edit the book and control it and make you hit deadlines. Because I love Grant Morrison, but that guy on his own timetable, he ain't putting a shit in.
Yeah.
Maybe if he probably finished Happy and then Derek Robertson started drawing it with the completed script. I mean, I guarantee you that's what's happening now. Because look at Multiversity, look at Wildcats, look at a bunch of unfinished Morrison projects, because he has sort of his own timetable on that stuff, and which is never going to happen. Because Bendis with Scarlet, the last issue of Scarlet is like a year late. These guys. But I can shit out 4 issues of new X-Men or new Avengers a month, or 4 issues of new X-Men a month now. This is 3 and 4 weeks. That's crazy talk. We were totally going to talk about Marvel Now stuff, and we just got so sidetracked on this Vertigo stuff for a while. Let's talk about this real quick, and we can end with some Marvel Now. Is anyone unsurprised by the quote-unquote rumor of who the big bad is in the upcoming JLA movie?
Does anyone actually heard that?
You have one guess. Who's the villain?
Darkseid.
There you go. Good guess.
That's the rumor.
Is that, hey, guess what? Green Goblin's going to be in a Spider-Man movie.
Well, okay.
Whoa!
Look at all the other JLA baddies. Like, you can't really do Starro and attract your average audience.
I would be first in fucking line
So
if
would
they had
I.
Starro. I'd fight you.
We're comic book nerds.
No. Fuck Starro. I'd be first in line for Dr. Light.
Dude, Amazo.
Oh my god!
It'd have to be an NC-17 film.
Could be awesome.
You're a terrible human being, Omar.
Amazo could be good.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
but the thing is like when you look at these, they're more esoteric, kind of like comic booky characters. Like
Right.
Darkseid is like he's for all intents and purposes, he's kind of like the other side of the coin. He's this guy is obviously evil, and he can voice his
Power
intentions, and power corrupt.
Yeah.
But the question is, do we have Darkseid and Thanos in the same summer in competing movies?
That's
Please. Yes,
supposedly
please.
the same thing that's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
the
because-
timelines.
I mean, Thanos was created by Roy Thomas for Marvel as a direct response to Darkseid, who was created by Jack Kirby at DC.
Everybody
So-
has those.
All right, of course.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see which comes out first. To see if the villain in the second one is like, oh, I'm actually copying that guy, but it's the opposite because
I don't know.
this guy
The
was
only thing
first.
that bothers me about this particular rumor just has to be, I've seen some awesome stuff over the years with like working in Darkseid into Superman the animated series. I mean, reading all the old Fourth World stuff. It's all about that sort of build up and establishing the other players. So when Darkseid shows up, he has a huge amount of heft to him.
Do they Thanos him? Do they put him at the end? Do they have them fighting like Granny Goodness and Orion the whole movie?
As silly as that would be, I would kind of almost prefer that just because.
Is this a Parallax Green Lantern we shot our wad in the first movie problem?
That's kind of what I'm thinking. It's
I don't think so. I think this is like Jeff Johns getting his ode. It's like, we fucked up on the Green Lantern film, Jeff. Here, just take it. Do it, son. Do it.
If they
And
actually adapted the Justice League one for that movie, I would be down for that.
Because that way, if you think about it, the way I read it, that's what I loved about Justice League, like number 1 through 5, was to be able to be reintroduced to the Justice League, all the characters that we all know, all iconic. To your point that you brought up earlier, I think we can all agree. Everyone knows who Flash is. Everyone knows who Wonder Woman is. Everyone knows who Superman is, and you don't need to actually give an origin story to each of them. You just introduce them in a different way where they're all meeting for the first time.
Right. Did you see the new movie poster for Superman?
Yeah.
Steel,
yeah.
Where he's in the cuffs. That kind of reminds me of Action Comics, the more recent Morrison one.
Right.
Did you hear what one of the rumored lines are supposed to be for the women trying out for a Wonder Woman for the Wonder Woman TV show? Talking about ice cream from Justice League. It's the same line. So clearly they're looking at the New 52 stuff, or the New 52 stuff is a direct response to what Warner Brothers wants to do with it. So it's like they're kind of both happening at the same time.
Yeah.
The comic books exist for then the movies to then sort of pick and choose scenes from, sort of steal and incorporate in. So if the Justice League movie was Justice League 1 through 5, I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, and
well, the only thing that I would be very curious about is would they then streamline the sequel to that to be put out so they can then do the sequel movie based?
I don't know.
I was just going to say, hey, Warner Brothers, if anybody over there is listening, Gina Carano as Wonder Woman. Just saying.
She's been a lot of people have put her kind of as a forefront, but I don't know.
Because she's perfect.
I don't have.
Have you seen Haywire?
No, I don't.
Well, then go watch that.
I don't like doing casting calls for stuff because I can never see people until I see them. Like, until they're the character, then I'm like, yeah, sure, you're the character because you are the character. You know, I'm bad because looks is a real hard thing that you can make people look so different if you want to. So,
you know, I'll give you that when they cast. Why am I blanking on the guy who played Captain America?
Chris Evans. When they announced him as Captain America, I'm like, the guy who played Human Torch?
Yeah, exactly.
Really? And I wasn't really on board until they started showing production stills of him like all bulked out. I'm
ripped.
like, okay, you know, I can see that. I can see him as Captain America.
Him and Chris Hemsworth both got fucking ripped.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
For Cap and Thor. Oh my god, it's
Well,
crazy.
Hemsworth, like,
because did you see?
was falling over himself trying to get that part.
Well, you saw Cabin in the Woods, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
how small he is in that?
Yeah.
Because that was shot before Thor.
Yeah.
That was shot a couple years ago. And it's like, man, that guy. I don't know how you put on that much muscle. That is ridiculous.
I don't know. I was looking at Natalie Portman throughout the whole film. I don't know what you guys are doing.
I'm just saying.
Oh, she was in Thor. That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
What? I have a man crush on Chris Hemsworth. Don't hate.
So I think to wrap up this episode, we're going to talk a little bit since Brock's not here. We could talk about some Marvel. We'll have to get into
Marvel.
Alex, so you know, Brock is our one of our lovable missing co-hosts who has recently broken up with Marvel. So he's very, very angry over
how
everything
recent
Marvel.
is it?
It's been like a year,
Yeah.
but you know, it takes half as long when you break up with someone to get over them as you've gone out. So if you've liked Marvel for like 20 years, it takes about 10 years to get over them.
So what's his beef is my question.
He just hates Marvel, and we just
Okay.
I just like to make fun of him for it. So because I'm not the biggest Marvel fan these days, but he goes overboard.
At least Marvel's not completely rebooting the universe.
So
let's not go there.
Hey, Marvel now is not a reboot of the universe.
No,
They're
it's not.
still going.
Yeah, it is.
No, but it's
Because
all it is them doing a renumbering instead of one book at a time, trying to make an event out of it.
Well, let's we covered I think about half the Marvel Now books.
It worked. They got market share back for the last 2 months.
I think we covered about half the Marvel Now stuff a couple episodes ago of the ones that had come out so far. Let me pull up a list here. Let's pull up our November list.
Not that much has come out since we talked about it last.
Yeah, it was just last week when we talked about quite a few books, right?
No, there was a few more that have
2
come
weeks
out.
ago, I think.
2 weeks.
Yeah, because All New X-Men 2 came out.
Uncanny Avengers.
Well, let's start with All New X-Men because you guys, 2 was better than 1, but not by a long shot.
that's the time travel
liked
story,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Really good. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm digging it. As I was saying before the show, one of the things I love reading number 2 on that book is all those conversations I had about number 1 and about how it meant something had to be wrong with the Beast. They had the same conversation in the book, and I
You felt validated, right?
Exactly. I like it when the characters are having the same reaction that I'm having to something a character did.
Well, my continuing problem with this book is cool pitch for a miniseries. Where do you go after like issue 6? Because this is not
kill somebody.
No. I'm sorry, issue 6, which is going to be out in 18 minutes, because apparently they put on 9 copies of this book a year or a day. Because this book is 3 is coming out next week, which is ridiculous.
I still got to say it's a pretty entertaining read.
Yeah.
Like just the thought of getting the original 5 X-Men back from the past, bringing them forward to try and talk some sense into now villain Cyclops.
I think it's a fantastic concept.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just unfortunate it's by Bendis. So
Well, one of my favorite scenes in number 2 was when Wolverine's in the classroom and he just sort of sniffs
that was a good
and
scene.
Stops and like immediately leaves the classroom because he smells Scott.
That was a good scene.
Yeah.
That was a good scene.
Yeah.
Although one would assume that he would have also picked up Jean Grey's scent, which
Well, I'm pretty sure he did, but it was a little more of the something's going on outside, I can't be in here kind of scene.
Did we talk Cap number 1? I can't remember. Remember what we talked about?
I think we did, because that was the same week Thor and stuff came out.
Yeah.
It's like everything about it was good except for JRR, right?
Yeah. I did read Deadpool number 1. That was terrible. I just don't like Deadpool.
I
so,
liked it.
yeah, I know
liked
you guys
it.
liked it. I thought it was horribly unfunny.
And number 2 was great.
Yeah.
I
You're a
just
Deadpool fan too, aren't you?
no, I'm not.
Oh, you're
yeah.
yeah.
I think Deadpool is kind of like, especially now that he's grown in popularity. I'm just like, okay, I've had enough.
Yeah.
He's like Wolverine from like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
This just in, anybody who likes Deadpool, he's a blatant ripoff of Deathstroke from DC.
Yeah. Well,
Wade Wilson.
Yeah, that's what he started
read the
as.
Wikipedia article.
It was all because of Rob Liefeld. Back to Rob Liefeld. He really wanted to do a Teen Titans, and they wouldn't let him, so he did New Mutants.
I don't know. I love Deathstroke and Deadpool, though visually and stylistically they're kind of like the same, totally different.
But they're different
they're
now.
very different.
The vibe and the feel.
Exactly.
How about FF? The FF book, not Fantastic Four.
Can't read after
Replacement one.
Hickman left it. Sorry.
Yeah.
So the Matt Fraction Mark Bagley one was all right. I didn't hate it.
I liked it.
I thought it was fine. The FF book, which is Ant-Man Miss Thing, which is a new Johnny Storm girlfriend, Medusa and She-Hulk. It wasn't a bad book because that's by Matt Fraction and
Allred?
Mike Allred. Yeah. I was really hoping this was going to be a new X-Force / Ecstatics, and it really wants to be. Unfortunately, the first issue was basically a recap of Fantastic Four number 1.
Yeah.
So there wasn't anything new to it. They just basically go around and he puts together the FF team, and it's like, okay, but nothing happened in the first issue.
Huh.
So I will continue to read. I hope it gets better. I just was not blown away by the first issue, but it was better than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be fucking awful.
Yeah, I wanted to read it because Ant-Man's pivotal in it. But.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's worth a read. If you like X-Force and Ecstatics, read it. Hopefully, it'll be similar. That's my hope.
To me, it's just it's this typical introduction book. You get all these characters get the offer from the various members of the Fantastic Four, so now we get to see what these characters do in the next issue when they actually come together. So,
what else do we have? Iron Man 2. That was pretty unreadable. Thor number 2.
that was really, really good.
As good as number 1. Thor's the book, guys. Okay, Avengers is coming out this week. That could also be the book. But Thor, until now, Thor's been the book.
I really liked the Hulk, the Wade Hulk. That worked for me.
I assume it'll be third place behind Avengers. I'm hoping Avengers is phenomenal because I love Avengers. Yeah. And, Alex, I have a run of Avengers, almost complete from number 1. I mean, I don't have 1, 2, and 3. I have 4. I have most of the Silver Age stuff. I have, except for 127, I think it is. I have every other Avengers book. I have... Well, I don't have the terrible, Liefeld stuff or whatever, whoever did that. I have all the other stuff. I mean, I love the Avengers.
Oh, yeah.
But then disassembled and
it's been such a long time though. I forgot who. I mean, I know Hickman's writing the book. Is it Opeña?
Yeah.
Oh, how can that not be bad? That's going to be incredible. It's going to be the book.
The preview pages. Opeña is
seems rushed
usually good.
Yeah.
Usually, I don't know. I didn't like the preview pages. Maybe they'll look better with word balloons on them. It didn't feel like It didn't feel like the opinion I've seen before. I don't want to say rushed, but I want it to be better than it looked. Maybe it's just weird because it's weirdly like random shots of stuff. Like there was not a lot of context to it. So I mean, first thing I'm doing tomorrow when I open the box is reading Avengers. Like I am so stoked. And I normally like Opena, so we'll see. I'm very, very, very excited for that. Avengers Arena comes out this month. Meh. Darkhawk's in it, so he's going to get killed in the first issue because I love Darkhawk. So fucking they killed Nova. They have stupid new Nova. The Speedball's gone. Firestar is looking like an idiot, and Wolverine and the X-Men. So
he's a new Warriors fan.
Yeah, yeah. Darkhawk's my man.
Wait, so is this like Battle Royale or something?
It is. They're totally going to kill him in the first issue, I guarantee you. Or like third issue. Sorry. Cable and X-Force, that's going to be awful. Sorry, Charlie. Sorry. Sorry.
That is
going to be awesome.
Sorry. I would be looking forward. I'm actually looking forward to Thunderbolts more than I thought I was.
I'm jumping on it.
I just hope Red Hulk... I know the entire book is based around Red Hulk. I just hope he's in it very, very little.
I'm kind of hoping it's good just based on the team, but
yeah.
Venom.
Oh, dude,
Electra.
It's like,
I mean, right?
I'm kind of 50-50 right now because I've seen reviews where it's getting like a 2 out of 10, but I'm like,
Thank you, Newsarama.
Yeah, I'm not like.
Well, it's Steve Dillon too, and man, people hate Steve Dillon on superhero books.
Yeah,
I love Steve Dillon, and I know I thought his Punisher stuff with Garth Ennis was incredible.
Oh yeah,
but he's definitely a very hit or miss artist for a lot of people. So, come in January, because those solicitations for all this are up now. Morbius, Living Vampire by my friend Joe Keating. Sorry, Joe, this book's going to be canceled after 12 issues. Totally not your fault. It's just because it's a Morbius book. Like, I would love for this thing to go on, but, I mean, how often do they? Savage Wolverine by Frank Cho, so he'll do 2 issues of that. Seriously, like, am I wrong? Frank Cho, when the hell does he do more than 2 issues of a book, 3 issues of a book? Sure, maybe he'll do he's going to Joe Madden, like with Avenging Spider-Man, and do 3 issues, and that'll be the last issue.
Why you got to bring up old wounds? I'm gonna go home and read my old Battle Chasers now.
all 9.5 issues.
6.
Superior Spider-Man, which we talked about at length the other week,
and I did break. I ended up picking one up. Yeah. I ended up like actually buying one, so I'm gonna actually jump back on Spider-Man because Doc Ock is Spider-Man.
Nice.
And if that does continue, I will be happy with Spider-Man.
Yeah. Uncanny X-Force by Sam Humphries and Ron Garney, featuring Psylocke, Storm, Spiral, and Huck.
I actually like the new team. It's kind of cool.
Spiral?
And a girl, and a girl version of
Eva, the female, the ship,
Phantom X's
ship.
Yeah. Well, they say her name is Cluster here. I don't know. I don't know what that is.
That's weird.
Maybe that's not accurate. Young Avengers by Kieran Gillen and Jamie McKelvey.
That looks awesome.
Creative team by Phonogram. So that should be interesting. February is Fearless Defenders. That'll be canceled after 8 issues. Brock's favorite, Guardian of the Galaxy by Brian Michael Bendis and Steve McNiven. My favorite, Nova by Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness. That can suck my ass.
Because you ripped the cover off and you said that's a good cover.
Yeah. I totally ripped the cover off and I ripped I ripped Jeff Loeb's name off and I ripped Nova off the cover and it just says Nova by Ed McGuinness and I'm like, that's a book I want to read. Forget those other 2 guys. Secret Avengers by Nick Spencer. I'm actually really excited for this new Secret Avengers book. This looks like what the Secret Avengers should be. It's Black Widow, Hawkeye, Mockingbird, Iron Patriot, meh. Nick Fury, Phil Coulson. Yeah, Coulson.
Wait, so who's supposed to be Iron Patriot in that book?
Don't know. It says new Iron Patriot. And Hulk. But they set Hulk up to be S.H.I.E.L.D.'s kind of...
Well, where's Rhodey at?
Secret weapon.
Maybe they're going to link it to the movie.
Could be.
Could be, yeah.
Uncanny X-Men just recently announced by Brian Michael Bendis and Chris Bachalo. So it's following Cyclops. We'll see how that works out.
Ooh.
Supposedly Wolverines 2013 by Paul Cornell and Alan Davis.
That sounds cool.
I'll see what's up with that. Daredevil's supposed to get the MarvelNOW banner, so we'll see how that goes.
But they're not relaunching it; they're just adding the banner.
Yeah, like a few.
So
of the
Wade's
other
going to
titles.
continue.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
I was going to say, as far as I'd heard, he's
Yeah.
it's
There's
safe with
very
Wade.
few people that can properly write Daredevil.
What I've been told,
one of them.
what I've heard about Daredevil is similar to a few other books Marvel has, which is basically leave me out of the crossovers and I will write this book for as long as you want me to. Yeah. But the second you start fucking with me, I'm out. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like Mark Waid's going to stick to that book as long as it's selling. He'll stick on that book. So
that's fine.
I mean, I'm excited for a handful. I'm hopeful for half or more, and it's a handful that whatever. But as they've gone forward, the Marvel Now stuff seems okay. Again, I wish they had done this similar to DC because this long-term release schedule is not happening so well. But then again, asking people to buy like 50 new series or something like that within 1 month is, it's a little daunting. So, but it worked for DC. So interested that Marvel's trying a very different approach to it. But what can you do? So, that's all that. And again, as we get through December, we'll probably check in towards the end of the month with all the new books. So especially next week for Avengers. We'll talk Avengers #1.
Sweet.
And we'll go forward with that. Well, that is going to be an episode. We're clocked in over an hour here already.
Can you please catch up on your Walking Dead so we can freaking talk about this shit? Because
they're on break now, so now I can catch up. Now I can just marathon through the whole show.
I don't like... okay, I think my big thing is I don't like my zombies bleak. So there basically came a point in time in the show as well as the comic books where I'm just like, I can't take this anymore.
It's hard.
It's like The Road to me. Like, did any of you guys read or watch The Road? Yeah. I just...
Yeah, the book's rough. So, like, you feel bad.
Give me Zombieland or...
Zombieland's fun.
Yeah.
No more Twinkies, though. Poor Zombieland.
Yeah. What was it? Zombieland and or Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, yeah.
For my zombie movies. Any day.
You're going to go see the new Evil Dead?
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I'm not feeling that. I love Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. The new one's like,
Well, Army of Darkness was like, I think the big thing is the Evil Dead series has that kind of like, here's one of those movies I watched when I was a teenager. Yeah. So me and my friends quoted the hell out of it. And it has that like kind of nostalgia goggles effect.
Yeah.
So if you decide to go and remake it, it's going to be kind of rough to meet up to expectations.
Well, I kind of like the way they're remaking it. I like the fact that it's basically Sam Raimi saying, I learned how to make movies making this movie, so I'm going to start a production studio, and the first thing I'm going to do is let somebody else try and make an Evil Dead movie.
As long as he's consulting on it, I don't care.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's still consulting on stuff, but he's using that as sort of the test ground for these new people trying to make it in the industry, and I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. If you like this episode and you want to listen to it again or any of our other episodes, you can go to www.geekbox.net. You can also find us on iTunes or comicsconspiracy.biz. If you want to send us an email, thecomicconspiracy@geekbox.net, you can reach us there, or you can send us a link to the contact form. You can always hit us up on Twitter. I'm Ryan Higgins Ryan. Brock Sager's on here, but he's Brock Sager on Twitter. Comics and Decline, that's Omar. No Toby's Toby XI. Charlie, Insanity and Chaos. Alex, you do any Twitters? You do any blogs? You want
do
pimp
Twitter?
You want to pimp a website or anything?
Nah, not really.
Okay,
I don't do the whole Twitter or blog
old school.
Right now.
Just like Bryce.
I have Facebook.
The Bryce has got it. Oh, Bryce is Bryce Larson too. He got in hardcore, dude. He's tweeting left and right. He jumped on. And we got him on there. He's loving it. He's like, oh, this is. I'm telling you, once we get people in, they tend to like it. So.
Well, it seems anything you get Bryce into, he jumps in both feet forward.
Yeah, Bryce is on there too, so you guys can add him at Bryce Larson. He's tweeting like crazy. He loves the hashtags too. He loves them almost as much as you do, Omar.
Yeah,
you love your hashtags.
Well, you have to have them all connected. I don't like retweeting things. I don't like writing things on multiple platforms. Just send it to one and let the robots do the work.
Yeah. You can go to conspiratobrock.com, which is Brock's blog. You can go to comicsanddecline.com, which is Omar's bloggy thing. You can listen to The Infinite Long Box, which is Charlie's other podcasts. You can do that. As well as the Geekbox, the Comic Conspiracy, which is us, the Comedy Button, and Good Job Brain, all on the Geekbox network. Karen from Geekbox and Good Job Brain is going to be at the Stitcher Awards, which I think, did that happen? Or is that this weekend? It's really soon. I think it's this weekend. They're like the opening band, quote unquote, for the Stitcher Awards, where there's a big podcast award ceremony in San Francisco. So they're up for a nomination.
Cool.
And they're opening up for like a real live comedian who's going to be like the kind of the DJ of the show or whatever, doing the whole thing. So that should be neat. Yeah, I think that's it. Forums at geekbox.net. You can go talk to us on there. Digital.comics, conspiracy.biz. Go buy some digital comics from us. That always helps. We make a little money on that. That's kind of cool. I actually got a lot of people asking me about digital comics recently, so you can ping me or hit me on the forums. I can tell you more about it.
Do you know what I realized?
What's that?
There's some really nicely priced stuff on Comixology just normally. Like the first trade worth of the Star Trek Doctor Who crossovers, like $7.99.
They do a lot of kind of like budget price volume ones and free first issues and stuff.
Well,
yeah.
Isn't like the trade for that like $20 or something for the first 5, and you can just go on to Comixology today and get it for $7.99.
Welcome to digital.
Yeah.
Just like HeroClix.
That's what I've been expecting from digital since they first started doing it, is not charging me the same price as going to buy the...
As normal, it is the same price as retail for the first 30 days. After that, sky's the limit. So that is the general rule for digital pricing. So,
well, I was just impressed seeing that it's so cheap.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So, all right, we're going to wrap this episode up. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Alex. It was good to have you on. So, feel free. We'll definitely have you on again.
I will be back.
Excellent. And we will catch you all next week.